What is the scariest theory you know about? As Arctic permafrost melts, it will release diseases that have been frozen in the ground for thousands or tens of thousands of years, and life on Earth will have no immunity to them. Wonder how the world will react if a disease suddenly infected the whole world. We're good at following orders and social distancing, so it won't spread that fast, right? Even if it could, I'm sure with the concrete and immediate steps the world is taking to fight climate change, none of this will come to pass. That theory about what happened on the missing Malaysian flight. From looking at the evidence and the most likely scenario, that being the pilot committing suicide, people have been able to piece together possible scenarios that happened on the plane. One of which is that shortly into the flight, the pilot deoxygenated the plane and accelerated to a high altitude, killing all on board very quickly. He then flew for hours and hours south before crashing the plane. It's scary to me because he would have been flying in an isolated part of the Earth, with nothing ahead of him other than the South Pole. That isolated plane, flying in the dark, with hundreds of dead strapped in their seats. The nearest city, Perth, is still asleep and only beginning to wake up. There is no one, and nothing. To think of that man, flying with all those bodies in the dark to nowhere is very scary. So selfish, and cowardly, but also very scary. There was a very interesting article in The Atlantic about it. Here's a quote. The cabin occupants would have become incapacitated within a couple of minutes, lost consciousness, and gently died without any choking or gasping for air. The scene would have been dimly lit by the emergency lights, with the dead belted into their seats, their faces nestled in the worthless oxygen masks dangling on tubes from the ceiling. We don't know whether the universe is in a true vacuum, lowest possible energy state, or a false vacuum, a local low, but not the lowest. If the universe is a false vacuum, at any point, at any moment, a quantum tunneling event could occur where that point spontaneously decays to a true vacuum. If that happened, a bubble would expand from that point at the speed of light that radically altered physics, instantly annihilating everything down to the subatomic level. Since it travels at sea, there'd be no warning, no way to see it coming. When it reached us, you'd just instantly blink out of existence. Even if we are in a false vacuum, such an event doesn't become likely for at least 10,139 years. But it could happen at any moment, at any point. It could have already happened and the bubble could be heading straight for us, about to end us at any TI. That, after decapitation, you may still be conscious and somewhat aware for at least a few seconds. I saw one about the potential of a specific type of supernova that would essentially fire out a beam of radiation, or some other kind of energy. If it hit Earth, we would see the entire sky covered with auroras. This is the ozone layer burning off, and the last thing we would see before we all die. Guess at least we get a pretty light show to end on. That AI, self-replicating, and immortal, has a better chance of colonizing this galaxy than biological life does. Think about it. It took hundreds of millions of years for life to get to this point. From a ball of proteins to multicellular creatures to plants and animals, took an incredible amount of time. Back in the late 1970s, I was playing with computers that had 4K of RAM. 40 years later, we have incredible computing power in the palms of our hands, hundreds of gigs, and terabyte micro SD cards. Robotic manufacturing of everything from circuit boards to vehicles is the norm. Where will this tech be in a couple hundred years? Will AI be able to design and launch spacecraft that are capable of self-maintenance for the hundreds, maybe thousands, of years it would take to reach the nearest exoplanets? Once they arrive, will they be capable of self-replication? Machines don't need food and water. Machines aren't susceptible to disease or mental health issues. Machines don't seek power or authority, and don't victimize each other for amusement. What if the purpose of human life in the universe is to facilitate the creation of AI and launch its spread into the wild? This could backfire. Read the Berserker series by Fred Saberhagen for more. At an undiscernible point, AI stops being artificial and just is intelligence. Also, if a machine is at a level of complexity where abstract thought and imagination are happening, it becomes difficult to say that this is not a life form of some kind. What you describe is a terrifying possibility, but it is also likely that at some point humans will be able to transfer their minds to a digital substrate and live on as digital intelligences. This may be how mankind, transcends the physical world to colonize the universe far more efficiently than biological life might. The possibility that I am just a brain in a jar and my entire life is just something my brain fabricated to keep itself entertained. Everything and everyone I have ever known is a figment of imagination. Every method I can conceive to prove this idea wrong is also just part of the dream logic my brain has created to make sense of the illusion that is my existence. That the Big Bang is just a never-ending cycle. Each time the universe explodes into existence, it will inevitably end, and the Big Bang restarts. Each iteration of existence is just a rerun of the Big Bang. The theory is likely called Big Bounce. The butterfly effect kind of freaks me out because it suggests that every little action could be part of a series of events that leads to something much more impactful. For example, I could drop a pencil, which distracts someone for a few seconds, causing them to miss the bus, and after a few billion seemingly insignificant events, World War III begins. Equally likely that you dropping the pencil prevents World War III. The two possibilities cancel each other out, so you don't have to worry about it. So I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I learned this in a class I took last semester. There's a theory that says that there is a point that no intelligent life can get past, no matter what they do. Diving deeper into this, some people claim this is why we haven't found any other intelligent life forms. I think the truly scary part about it is that we won't know we are at that point until we are living it. It's called the Great Filter. You can think about it two ways basically. We have already passed the filter, and therefore we may really be all alone in the universe. Or we have yet to hit it, and there's this looming thing that will keep us from advancing. I tend to believe we have yet to pass the filter. The Great Filter has been posited as a possible answer to Fermi's paradox. Either civilizations eradicate themselves through mismanagement or war, or some hyper-advanced civilization goes around wiping out all others they encounter before they reach similar strength. Only two possibilities exist. Either we're alone in the universe, or we aren't. Both are equally terrifying. Arthur C. Clarke. The hypothesis that human life was seeded by another civilization. What if they come back? They'd be mighty fucking disappointed. I genuinely doubt it. We've gone from a single continent nomadic species with small numbers to a global advanced civilization capable of leaving our planet and communicating instantaneously from anywhere. Fractalization theories. Everything that exists is a tiny part of a bigger thing. In a brief summary, our galaxy is a part of space, but is space a small part of something larger? Think of a smaller object containing its own galaxy. A speck of a rock may contain its own microscopic cosmos that we cannot see. It may be composed of its own organisms smaller than a single electron, and that civilization is more advanced than we are. We know all matter contains their own gravitational force, but we don't exactly know why. Edit. Its true name is fractal cosmology. There's nothing after we die. All of our memories, experiences, thoughts, feelings, etc. just immediately blinked out of existence. And this seems like the most likely and realistic possibility to me. It will be just like before you were born. There's nothing to be afraid of. It didn't hurt, it wasn't scary. The thing that is scary is if you know you are going to die, you need to accept that you will never see anything again, never feel anything, and never think anything again. The uncanny valley? You know, the sense of unease and discomfort you feel when you look at a near-realistic animation of a human face, like imperfect deep fakes or flawed CGI faces in movies. It implies that there might have been a point in our species' evolution where we had legit reasons to be afraid of something that looked almost human, but wasn't. I'd imagine it's because of death. If you came across a dead person, you need to be able to tell they're dead and not just sleeping. Something seems not quite right with corpses, even though they look identical to a living human. That or there was a predator that could mimic humans, which is now thankfully extinct. The fact that if aliens do exist, they are either millions of years ahead of us, or we are millions of years ahead of them. It would be virtually impossible for them to become sentient around the same time as us, especially if you consider how old the universe actually is. It's debatable and contentious. Free will versus determination, and evidence from neuroscience that suggests people's actions occur before their thoughts. This would suggest that we have no control over our actions and are merely pawns in a bigger picture. It's both comforting and scary. From what I understand about it, we mostly operate on autopilot and have our decisions made up before we're even aware of it, but we also possess a certain veto function that we can use to choose to dismiss that autopilot proposed decision. SpaceTime is doomed. Donald Hoffman is a scientist who proposes that human brains understand and perceive nothing of ultimate reality because evolution selected for survival traits, not traits which would enable us to perceive the true nature of existence. Much like a trash can icon on your desktop is a useful fiction that helps you use the computer, but there is no real trash can, and when you drag and drop a file you aren't throwing anything away. The reality of programming language is behind the user interface, and binary behind that, and physical electronic circuits and components behind that, etc. Hoffman goes on to argue that the physical space-time world we inhabit is such an interface and not real. Unlike the simulation theory, he argues that simulation theory always assumes base reality is still a physical space-time universe. Hoffman has many podcast guest appearances and a TED Talk. Edit, it's like Mario on the TV. Everything he does is contained within the game, so Mario's science might be discovering the velocity of a turtle shell and how it ricochets off of things. Pixels are his atoms. But no matter how well Mario understands his world, from within the game itself he can never know that he is actually Python code powered by binary, powered by circuit boards, powered by the developers, etc. Our most advanced physics are no better than Mario's pixels, trapped within the limited frame of his world. What on earth does that first sentence have to do with the rest of the comment? 100 years from now, the majority of us will be dead. We will just be another page in the history book. We may think that our life was very valuable, but we are just another century passing by. Just like how a lot of us don't think about how the 19th century as much. It will be impossible to remember all 7.5 billion of us living in this century. The next century will just remember the ones that help advance our species. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.